Okie dokie. So let's have a look. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's make sure I'm coming out live. So make sure I'm coming out on YouTube and Facebook. So hopefully, you are picking me up. Let's have a quick look. Okay, I can hear myself, which is always good. So let me know if people joining. Fantastic. So if you're joining, let me know that you can hear me. Oh, hey, yeah. So across, excellent. Leslie's with us. Good, good, good. So, okay, people are trickling in on Facebook, which is fantastic. Let's just make sure you can see me on YouTube. Perfect. Excellent, excellent. So I seem to be coming out live. So let's have a look. All right, excellent, excellent, excellent. So whilst people are joining, let me know obviously where you're coming from. So people where you're joining from. Excellent, excellent. So people are trickling in. Excellent. Good, good, good. So I'm going to have a slurp of my coffee. Fantastic. Loud and clear. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Yes, Sarah, it will be recorded. So all the lives this week will be recorded. So don't panic if you can't watch them. I appreciate the time zones across the globe. From Derby, Missouri, Delaware, Florida, sunny Florida. Excellent. So yeah, if I will give more information, but yes, if you are unable to join the live, do not worry, they will be available to watch retrospectively, and I'll go into a little bit more information. So people are joining, that's brilliant. So I'm going to give it a moment for people to join before I start talking about the Locked In series that's going to be running all this week. Fantastic. Washington, lots from the States. Excellent, excellent, excellent. What time is it over there now? Are you guys 5 hours behind or in front? I suppose it depends on where you are. Lincoln, Staffordshire, Canada, Norfolk, sunny Norfolk, excellent. So all over. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Okay. So thank you very much for people's interest. The interest in this live series live has been overwhelming. This started from obviously sharing the ebook on teaching a switch on and switch off word, and really starting to ask people that follow me on social media and Facebook, and also listening to feedback I was getting about people struggling with getting their dogs focused. And it can be the people that have dogs with reactivity challenges, or sports world, or behavior challenges, or sports-specific dog sports fanatics, either or. Netherlands, we've got Netherlands here. Excellent, excellent. Evesham, Manchester, all over. Perfect, perfect. New Zealand, I've got some from New Zealand. Very cool. Excellent, excellent. So love your passion. Cool. My cousins even joined us. So I was listening to people, whether it be people that are struggling with reactivity challenges, or people that follow me that are dog sports enthusiasts, or people that have an adolescent dog, or people that just want to have a better relationship with their dogs. The common theme between all of those challenges was people struggling with focus and engagement. And it can be a dog that is reactive to other dogs. It could be a dog that is lacking focus that competes in dog sports. It could be dogs that are, just wanting to have a brilliant relationship with your puppy. Focus and engagement was a consistent challenge so many people were struggling with. And I thought, you know what? The best thing to do in that instance is to come up with solutions for people to that they can incorporate. So the first thing, if you haven't had chance when was it? It's probably been a couple of weeks now. I shared a ebook called, which was about teaching a switch on and switch off word, which anybody can download. All you have to do is go into one of the respective posts that prompt you to put in the term locked in, and you will automatically receive a email with an opportunity to get an ebook. It's absolutely free. It's a gift from me to you. Please, please, please download it. Obviously, you can use it, follow the steps, and you're going to have a Hawaii. Wow. God, there's a place I'd like to go. Follow the steps, and you're going to have a fantastic, fantastic understanding of teaching a switch off and switch on cue. So each of the days this week, and as I said, the lives are going to be available for people to watch retrospectively. So don't panic. You're going to have ample time to pick them up, probably for about 2 weeks. They're going to be available on both my Facebook page and my YouTube page. New Zealand, Canada, Belgium, Netherlands, Gloucestershire, South Notts, Dublin, fantastic. So they're going to be available to watch retrospectively on the Facebook page, my Facebook page, and YouTube channel. So you'll have ample opportunity to watch the lives, all that are going to be all this week. So tonight's live is obviously going to be focused on actually things that you might not even be aware of that are going to be ultimately causing you problems for focus and engagement. I'm going to elaborate on that tonight. Tomorrow's live will be at I've just got to check the time, my diary. It will be at 7:30 p.m. I will send that out on Facebook and email, etc. So don't worry about remembering the time. 7:30 GMT. Just again, my routine. My daughter, I have to do things around her. It takes a bit of juggling, obviously being a busy dad. But yeah, I will send that information out. So focus and engagement, getting your dog locked in. In the comments, let me know what your current struggle is with getting your dog focused and engaged. Is it a dog in sports? Is it reactivity issue? Is it that your dog doesn't have a great recall? Any other things, just let me know in the comments what you are currently battling with focus and engagement. Focus and engagement for me is the absolute foundation, irrespective whether it is a sports dog, whether it is a behavior problem, or whether it's just a dog that I want to have and have a brilliant life with. Lots of my dogs, I have several dogs that I don't do any sports training with, but they've been raised in the same way as my competitive dogs have been, whether it's, a dog that I want to just have a better life with, or it's an elite level sports dog. All the foundations are the same, because ultimately that's what I want. I want a dog that's focused on me and engaged with me, and that will allow them to navigate life and not be a problem to others and be a joy to own. I say this about, I have a lot of dogs. Some of you may know, but let's see. Can you guess how many dogs I have? So let's go some of these challenges. So reactivity, really common struggle that people have. A strong pointer that doesn't listen. Obedience to rally, so sports. Reactivity to anything that looks at him. Struggling to focus, engagement in the obedience ring. Sports-related reactivity, hormonal teenager. Yep, really challenging. So all the things I'm specifically going to be coming in tonight is going to massively help all those people, and certainly the rest of the lives all this week. A sensitive dog. Let's try and train dogs in dog sport. My dog doesn't focus on me, busy eating, sniffing grass. Really common. Let's have a look. So how many are the numbers? So 7, 8, 14, 11. What else we got? 12. Yeah, a couple of you have hit the right number. Yes, 17. No, not quite. 14. No, a couple of you have come up with the answers, the correct answer. 16. 16 dogs I have with me. And if you follow me on social media and Instagram, you probably can guess how many dogs I take out on a dog walk with me at one time. You'll probably be able to figure that one out if you know how many dogs I have. But I'll see if you can figure that one out, whether how many dogs I can walk at one time. And what else have we got here? Switching off in agility, reactive male stuff. Okay, so yeah, absolutely 16. I can walk all 16 together, and that's because of the way in which they're raised. So not all my dogs are competition dogs. Sugar has never stepped foot in a competition ring, but she is a phenomenal pet and family member. She's done television work. She does stooge work. She works with reactivity dogs. She is a absolute phenomenal dog, and she was a dog that was cast off, nobody wanted, or somebody didn't want. And she is the model citizen. It's because of the way in which she's been raised, which is the same foundation, irrespective of the end goal for that dog. So if you are a dog owner that's struggling with focus and engagement, the things that I'm going to be discussing this week are going to be a game changer. And we're going to start with, for me, one of the areas that people often overlook that ultimately could be hindering the way in which your dog gives you focus and attention, irrespective of the environment that they're in. And that is the things that you do not related to training. Okay, that sounds a bit back to front. So at the moment, what I want you to comment on is put a comment on what your dog finds the most exciting thing in their life currently. Where do they get excited? What is the thing that they absolutely love? Is it food? Is it toys? Is it swimming? Is it chasing? Is it running off? Is it other dogs? Tell me what your dog's most favorite thing is at the present in the comments. So post a comment and I'm going to share some of those before we move on with tonight's, hopefully, the information that's going to be instrumental in helping you achieve. So throwing a ball using food, excellent. I'm going to have a look at hunting possums. That's a really challenging one. Toys, food or treats, other dogs, smells and treats, football, food chasing, frisbee tugging. So lots of stuff coming over here. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay. Barking at the window. Yep. Really, really common. Dogs love to bark at windows. Dinner. Okay. Excellent, excellent. So we're getting lots and lots of different, thoughts there, but all with a similar theme, that they're based in the environment. Obviously, several of you said tugs and food, which is fantastic. So what else have we got here? Other dogs sniffing, really, really common. Chasing birds, toys, playing ball, chasing the ball, age from a hose, ball of that one. That's it. Food, yeah. Running the waves, yeah. My dogs love to swim. I've got lots of dogs that love to swim. Sniffing, agility, yeah. Really, really common. So, excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay, so we're now getting a really good picture of what the areas that people struggle with and their dogs love. Okay, and the first question I'm going to ask you is, how does your dog access that thing? Okay, and again, just have a think about it. How does your dog access the ball? How does your dog access the toys? The food. How does your dog access waves? How does your dog access sniffing? How does your dog access, etc.? Okay, I'll start to mull that over. How does your dog access those things in their life? Where and when does your dog get access to swimming or waves or food or toys, etc., etc., etc.? Have a think about that. Okay, now, in terms of focused engagement, one of the major areas where most dogs, if we look at our dogs' lives, there is pivotal events in their days, and some of them you've already identified. It might be when your dog gets to swim, or when it gets to sniff, or when it gets to chase, or when it gets to go chase birds or squirrels, or whatever the case may be. And often you'll find that that dog can access that reinforcement, that trigger, that reward. It can do it not always via you. Okay, and it can do it in a way that let's just say the dog, for example, great example, I'm going to pick on one of the things that people said. The dog loves to bark at the window, and it does so because it may be a guarding dog, just hypothetically, and it thinks that it's warding off the Amazon delivery man or the postman every time, or the binman, every time the dog barks. And there's a reinforcement history that is occurring. That dog is learning and has got a lot of joy out of barking at the window, because in that dog's head, it is scaring off it's warding off the postman, Amazon delivery man, etc., from your doorstep. And that for the dog is a massive, massive win. And often what you'll find is that the things that our dogs value, we ideally would have them linked to us. So food and toys are really obvious, okay? But often our dogs can access those things without any involvement from us, or without any permission, or without any opportunity given from us. They're doing it at a way that isn't directly connected with us. So when we think about getting a dog that's focused and engaged, and if the dog naturally values those things and they are getting them essentially for free, when we provide things to that dog that we want to motivate them or get their focus, there can be a conflict. So, for example, my dog that likes to chase things, if that dog is chasing or running up and down fence, running with my neighbor's dog, and they're playing a little game of, running up and down, getting each other really high, and I'm not involved or giving the dog permission. 2, the dog is accessing that without my involvement. When I ask the dog to engage with me, I'm going to be competing with that free reinforcer, or that free fix that dog is obtaining. And that's something that we want to look at. Okay. The other area, which is so easy to manipulate and to access, where dogs get excited, where dogs get gratification, is one that most of us, not all of us, but most of us don't realize or sort of where most of us miss an opportunity to access and use as a reinforcer. And that is our dog's meal. If your dog likes its food, or even if your dog isn't particularly food driven, think of their reaction when you start to prep their meals. What happens to that dog? Does it get animated? Does it get excited? Does it just turn up? And does it suddenly show you a massive amount of attention and focus? And what we inevitably do is we build that desire to either a metal dish, okay, which most of us feed our dogs from, or alternatively, we do it to a series of events. So, for example, our dog knows that at a certain time we're going to feed them, so they get really buzzed up, and they go to the cupboard where that food is being prepped, or they note that our routine starts to happen. We go to the cupboard, etc., or the dog sees the presence of that metal dish being taken from the dishwasher, etc., etc., and that dog starts to get animated. And what then happens is we miss a massive opportunity to create a dog that has desire, focus, by not either attaching it to something that's connected to us directly, other than just us being the provider of food. And what we really want to be doing is using that to reinforce and create focus and engagement and reinforce good behavior. So one of the things that I encourage everybody to do is to allocate their dog's meals, irrespective. I know it's a bit more impractical if it's raw, but use their meals to build value for them and create focus and engagement. So the first thing I suggest is allocate your dog's meal. And this is the nuances of hand feeding or feeding your dogs rather than from a dog bowl. Most people miss an opportunity here, that either they will do what I call silver service, sit there and feed the dog, for one or two behaviors, as still in the same environment, still in the same context or picture, or still with the presence of the dog bowl. So all we're doing is we're building up a pattern or picture where our dog can be focused, i.e. I'm going to take you my food and train you in my living room. Brilliant starting point. And in the Switched On ebook about teaching a switch on word, that's one of the first things I suggest. Create a pattern where your dog is consistently fed in a certain location, so you start to build a classically conditioned association for your dog's training in that particular space, okay? But we want to grow that. We want to take our dog's meals and we want to utilize that to train and create that connection, to create value, to create desire. So what I would suggest, if you're a person that is currently struggling with focus and engagement, the first thing is look at how you are currently feeding your dog and use that as a way to reinforce them for good behavior, to build connection, to reward and reinforce good behavior, offered behavior. So what you're doing is painting the picture of the dog that you want to own, as opposed to a dog that largely accesses the thing that it desires without connection from you, without permission from you, in an unsolicited manner. And further to that, we're missing an opportunity to use the thing the dog values, i.e. their meal, to connect them to us. So get rid of your dog bowl temporarily and use your dog's meals to invest in the 5 E's. Now, the 5 E's are the way in which you're going to create a dog that's well-adjusted, a dog that's confident, a dog that's has good social skills, by creating reinforcement history for things attached to the 5 E's. I talked about this in previous blogs and posts on Facebook and lives. So the 5 E's are exercise. So when you go out on a dog walk, rather than, and I always say this to people, a lot of dogs with good intentions have really dedicated owners, but dogs in modern society often lead a similar life. And I include my dogs in that as well. I've been to work today. My dogs have primarily been in my van. They've come out briefly. They went out this morning. They went out briefly at lunchtime. They went out for a good walk this morning. And I will do, engagement and feeding, etc., on a dog walk, or recalls on a dog walk. But largely they have a very, boring day today. And what then, if they did that day after day after day after day, and the only time they went out for the walk was around the same park, doing the same routine, what's going to often happen is the dog is going to start to look to the environment to create little dopamine hits, little adrenaline rushes for them. And often that can be in an inappropriate manner, which can then directly impact that dog's focus and engagement with when they're in a sports context or a behavioral context. So the first thing that I would suggest is to think about what you do with them on a walk. Okay, so think about doing recalls. Recalls are fantastic. Susan Garrett talks about a recall being a reflection of a relationship with your dog. Never a truer word spoken. So you can do recall games on a walk. You can do rewarding the dog for offered connection or offered engagement with you. So if my dogs do check-ins, I'll reward them for check-ins. If my puppies and my young dogs come and gravitate to me, or if I want to bypass somebody and I want to maintain their focus, I can use some of their meals to do so. Second thing that you can do on a dog walk is enrichment and engagement. So you might do some tricks on a dog walk. You might do some scatter feeding on a dog walk. You might do some search games. You might do some impulse control stuff. You might do some parkour games where you send the dog to stand on something or engage or shaping behaviors. What you're doing is you're making that walk about you and that dog connecting. Now, often what people want to do is they use the dog's walk as a way for them to decompress. They've had a busy day, need to get the dog out for a walk, and it's almost a ticky box event. And certainly nobody, I'm sure, listening on this live will be of that thought, but often, certainly where I train, I often see people come walk their dogs once around the park and go home. Now, it could be that the person is busy, or that might be a snippet into their life. But there's something that could be, if that was a daily pattern, what you might find is that the dog just isn't having enough engagement. And therefore, what will happen is, again, the dog will start to look to the environment and the world to create those little triggers and that little high for them and that source of entertainment. So we want to be thinking about making your dog's walk an opportunity to engage and interact and connect with them. That in itself is going to help your dog focus away from just a walk, whether it be taking it on the high street, or if you're a sports person, a dog sports enthusiast, it will help you when your dog in a sporting context. So hand feeding them, think about exercise, think about stimulating them on a walk and engaging. And that's also going to tick the box emotional stability engagement, and entertainment. So you're going to take your dog out on a walk, use its meals, work on recalls, work on offered attention, work on engagement games. Great opportunity for you to reconnect the dog, to connect with your dog. Secondly, you're going to be thinking about incorporating enrichment. You might use enrichment tools, Kongs, slow feeders, treat balls, etc., to use to reinforce your dog or to create enrichment throughout your dog's day. Again, further to that, you're going to put some sort of cue or term or context into it. So the dog is you're going to get your Kong, you're going to preload it, you're going to say to your dog, Kong time, go to the fridge, get your Kong out, use it and give it the dog, and you can deliver their food in it. So you're now thinking of different ways of getting that dog to connect with you. And you're going to start to build up a whole library of triggers that you can use and cues that you can use to create connection. So you'll now go back to when we were saying about where does your dog find its little hits in its day. Okay. Now, the caveat to the following advice that I'm going to give, all these little tips, is safety should always be the driving force. So if your dog has a behavior that is dangerous for them or to others, then definitely management, prevention, even stopping the rehearsal should always be the driving entity. So this is not to say to take any risk with your dog's health or behavior. So for example, if your dog loves to chase birds and you live in an environment where they could run into a road, always think safety and prevention. Okay. Now, if it's a behavior that your dog rehearses, for example, a really simple way in which you can use this technique is if your dog loves to greet other dogs, or if your dog loves to greet other people, you're going to put a word on it, okay, to give your dog access to that thing. Say hello, go see, go play, anything like that, okay? So you're going to start to, rather than fighting the environment, fighting the thing that your dog wants, you're going to use it to create value, to create desire, to create focus. So now you're going to have a dog that's going to look to you to get access to play with its friends. It's going to look to you to get opportunity to go for a swim. It's going to look to you to get opportunity to, go outside and have a play around with your other dogs, etc. And the more that you can think about this in your daily routine, the better you are to be able to attach those things to you, so that you become the conduit to all good things, as opposed to the almost like the school teacher or the parent that says, don't do this and you have to be back by this time, and you can't do this and you have to do that. You don't want to be that to your dog. You want to create that connection where you are the conduit. You are the thing the dog has to go through to get the things that they want. Now, if you're struggling with that concept and feel like, oh, well, that means I have to put a cue on this, etc., and I have to cue on that, the thing to say to you that often your dog is going to access those things irrespective of you. Your dog's going to chase the fence line, waiting for the birds to turn up. Your dog is going to chase the squirrels at the park. Unless you commit yourself to a life of management and prevention, you may find that opportunity is going to be hindering your relationship and that connection that you're looking for. So hand feeding, looking at where your dog finds excitement and joy and arousal and what your dog finds rewarding, and attaching it to you via the means of the cue that gives them access to that thing if and when you deem appropriate, and you can then use it to access as a reinforcer. So hand feeding, putting a cue on things that your dog currently loves or likes or wants, so that you can use it to reinforce good behavior. The third thing that you're going to do is you're going to be thinking about looking for please or thank you or mother may I or father may I behaviors in order to access the things. So, for example, your dog loves to greet people, okay? Really easy one to work on. And you've put the behavior of greeting people or the opportunity to greet people on a cue. Go say hello. And obviously you don't want your dog tanking you over to people, or the dog in conflict of when they can or when they can't greet other people. So you're going to use it as a reinforcement. But the way in which the dog accesses that thing is the dog is going to offer what I would call a please, thank you, or mother may I or father may I behavior. Now that might be a pause, that might be eye contact, that might be a sit, that might be a down, that might be a hand touch. It doesn't matter. It can be any behavior that teaches the dog that they can access the thing that they want if they offer you a behavior, and ideally they would offer the behavior as opposed to being cued. Now, the reason why that subtle difference is so important is that you're now going to get a dog that goes from waiting to be told as opposed to the dog asking, can they? And that is a massive, massive, massive shift in how your dog views the world. If you currently struggle with focus and engagement, and you're in conflict with competing entities, people, dogs, the environment, smells, sounds, etc., or movement, you want to teach the dog that the way in which they get the thing that they want is to ask for permission in a way that you define as appropriate. That might be your dog offering a sit in order to say those people. That might be your dog giving you eye contact in order to go swimming. That might be sitting and waiting in order to, and you can fill in the blank. All right. So think about how you can interweave that into your dog's lifestyle. Now, the big thing to say to you is that as a dog owner, one of the most common questions I ask with my 16 dogs, I should say, is, do I have toys in my environment for my dogs? I absolutely do. I've literally got a toy behind me, a tug toy and a bone in my living room currently, and I've got other toys in the corner. My dogs have access to toys all the time, and those toys are specifically ones that the dog can engage with without me necessarily having to be involved. So Kongs, I've got a Topple Kong, I've got Bones, I've got some other little enrichment toys, and they are brilliant for occupying my dog, distracting my dog, stimulating my dog, providing outlets for engagement, etc., etc. And they're really good tools to have in your toolbox that can pacify your dog, provide enrichment, etc., that you don't necessarily have to be involved with. Now, those tools shouldn't be your be all and end all, okay? They are things that my dogs love, but if I was to provide an alternative toy, they would much prefer those. Okay, so we don't want to necessarily use our bestest toys for our dogs to engage or entertain themselves. We're not necessarily involved, because we want to try and connect with our dogs. We want to create that the dog valuing us, the dog looking for us for opportunities of ways to access the things that they want. So if I was to take my dogs out for a walk and they came across a situation, for example, a lot of my dogs love to swim, and if I came to somewhere where there was water, they would gravitate to the bank. Some of them would be a bit cheeky. The older ones would definitely be cheeky, and they start to go into the shallow water. But what would they do is gravitate and wait in anticipation for me going there and saying, "Go for a swim." And that's established and created via the things that I've suggested. Now, there's several reasons why I would have that cue in place for my dogs. One, it's not always appropriate that they go swimming. If the weather's cold or the water's really stagnant, certainly when I lived in London, it would be times when the water would be unusable, and I wouldn't mind my dogs going in there, and that would be a health risk for them and a safety risk. So I needed them to understand that, yes, you're absolutely going to go swimming. And certainly in the summer, I used to love swimming them as a great way to build fitness, etc. So it had its place, but if I had just allowed them to run in the water indiscriminately, they could have been a safety risk when that would happen. So having a permission cue permission cue and a key to open the padlock, for want of a better term, was a great, powerful thing that they learnt, which meant that they would gravitate, or they would pause at the edge of the water in order to access the opportunity to swim. And the best thing about it is that the fact that it was on a variable schedule reinforcement, meaning sometimes they could access it and sometimes they weren't allowed, actually made it more powerful, because they then learned that coming to me and behaving in a certain manner allowed them to get the thing that they want. What this does to create focus and engagement is it gets the dog to view the world differently, as opposed to going, again, I'm going to use an analogy with children. If your child walks into a toy shop and starts picking things off the shelves and bringing them to you indiscriminately, or putting them in a basket and then sort of engineering you to the till, I would deem that and if they don't get it, they have a tantrum, and then you give them the thing, the toy or the whatever, the doll, the car, or whatever it is they want, and you buy it for them, you are teaching them in really simple terms that they can take the things that they want indiscriminately, or they could display inappropriate, unwanted behavior in order to access that toy. If we think about that with our dogs, often that can be something that creates conflict and could ultimately lead to them lacking focus and engagement. Okay, so when we're talking about focus and engagement, we don't just look at that from the perspective of the time that we choose to attend a class, or the time that we're working on our behavior modification, or the time that we're in the competition arena or field or ring, or whatever it is that you're competing at. We want to be thinking about looking at the life that we lead with our dogs away from the activity itself. Does my dog rehearse behavior that is in conflict to my relationship with them? Does my dog access reinforcement in a way that is inappropriate to or unwanted? Does my dog access triggers, reinforcement, or rewards inappropriately for my relationship, or that puts my relationship in jeopardy? And that's a massive shift from having a dog that you're fighting against the environment, and a dog that actually looks to you to access all the good things. Okay, so I know there's quite a few comments and questions, so I'm going to see if there's any questions before I move on, because I'll definitely be some about hand feeding, I'm sure, and I'm sure there'll be about toys, etc. So let me run back. So okay, so let's have a look. So Leslie said all rewards have to go through me. I pay with him. I reward with treats. I pay him with. So Rosie said, always available always, but wants me to interact with her toys. So if you are a person that struggles with getting your dog's focus and engagement, absolutely, why would you not have toys for your dogs? That's a great way to things do. But making sure that you're not allowing the dog access to their favorite toy without connection with you, without offering a behavior that allows, that you want, that you deem appropriate, that you can utilize. So if your dog has a favorite toy, use it on a dog walk to work on enrichment, to work on recall, to work on focus, etc., etc. Okay. Let's have a look. He gets the ball from the toy box and gives food as in treats when he does something good. So I would say, again, if you have a toy box, and as I said, I have a toy box, think about the toys that you have in that toy box. Are they toys that you can use to provide engagement, to interact with? I'm going to talk about interactive play and interaction in terms of toys later on this week, where I'm going to elaborate on the key areas to work on. But think about how your dog accesses those things. And if you are a person that is struggling with focus and engagement, think about how you can use those to build value for your relationship, to build that connection, to use it in an environment that your dog may struggle with focusing, and to use it as a reinforcer. Okay. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Yeah, Louise answered, he runs to his bed when he knows it's been dinner time. So we want to shift that and use it in other ways that we can really maximize your dog's meals. Okay. Can you let's have a look. Okay, so let's have a look at that. Suggestions for using kibble to reward scent article exercise. Kibble smells tend to overwhelm handler on scent on article. I'm not sure I understand that. Just elaborate on that one for me. I'm not sure. Okay. Jeannie G said, love hand feeding, especially for puppies. Absolutely. And I would say for adolescent dogs, those are the two key areas when I absolutely will do hand feeding. Puppies, puppyhood, and adolescence, if you are struggling with your connection with your dog. Often what you find in adolescence, certainly dogs' appetites will deplete because their sex drive is increasing. They often are so focused on, looking for so suitable suitors or mates that they often lack food drive, and that's really normal. Boys can go off their food, girls can go off their food when they're a bit hormonal. So really using their food as reinforcement and engagement and enrichment and connection as a connection tool is a really great way to work your relationship and to avoid them losing focus. Diane Jones said, will this work for a 3-year-old dog, or should it be done from puppy? No, absolutely. Do it at any age with a dog. I mean, I've had a lot of rescue and rehome dogs. Bearing in mind, I've owned 30 dogs in my life, and I've had them from rescues, rehomes, dogs I've found. I bred them, I've bought them. I would do this with all my dogs from the get-go. And as I said, in adolescence, I'll often revert back to hand feeding and connection and permission and access cues in order to get my dogs looking at me to get the things that they want, as opposed to either taking them in an inappropriate manner and also realizing that the environment can pay them. And if they can get reinforcement from the environment, if they start to figure that out and it's done inappropriately, then it can often jeopardize my relationship and often create unwanted behavior. Chasing is a really easy behavior to explain this on. If my dog wants to chase and loves to chase, which a lot of dogs do, if I attach chasing to me, it becomes really powerful. My dog values me as the conduit to access the thing that they love, the opportunity to chase. If I don't provide that access or that alternative, and I'm going to talk about substitute behaviors, if your dog accesses that chase in a way, for example, chasing squirrels or birds or people or dogs or things, and that's not connected to you, it can either put them at jeopardy, it can either make them unsafe, or it could be counterproductive to my dog's focus, i.e. my dog is doing agility, another dog runs by, I lose my dog's focus. So making sure that I identify what my dog really loves is really, really important, and finding a way to provide antidotes or chase adjacent, sniffing adjacent activities, hunting adjacent activities, guarding adjacent. So something that looks quite like the thing that the dog really loves, but is similar, but not quite the thing, but is far more healthy and safe. So a good example of a chase adjacent activity with a dog that absolutely has a massive amount of prey drive is to have that dog chase you for a toy. Really simple, restrain, recall, run off, drag a toy along the ground. It invokes the dog to shift into prey drive and provides that dog with an outlet for that desire to chase. And it just so happens that I'm attached to that toy and I can use that as a reinforcement process, as a reinforcement strategy, and a reward for good behavior. I can provide a little fast chase movement to pay the dog for being still when another dog passed them, for coming back when they're called, for doing a brilliant obedience round or agility round or fly ball round or whatever it is that you're asking the dog to do. I can use that as a reinforcement. Even more powerfully is to put a specific term or word on that behavior. So it might be run. When I say run, I produce the toy, drag it along the ground, dog chases and grabs it. I condition that. That becomes now a reward marker. So that means that even when I don't have that thing immediately visible, the dog understands that the marker is a predictor. That means that I don't have to have it on show. It might not be immediate. So for example, I'm in a situation where my dog is in an obedience ring. It has built up a conditioned reinforcement marker, run, which means they're going to chase the toy. I go into the obedience ring. My dog does something brilliantly. I say run. I go outside, do some little chase games with the dog as a reward strategy and process. And the dog starts to bring that attitude into that competition arena where the dog is anticipating that fantastic thing happens. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Okay. Let's look. Let's have a look. A big worry, I need to put them on lead. Unable to leave toys round. So somebody's mentioned about unable to leave toys round as the dog resource guards. Absolutely. Safety always trumps everything. But it might be worth having toys if you do want to have toys in your home, have them in different spaces for the individual dogs and allow them opportunity to interact. It might be a great way to feed them if you use enrichment toys. It might be a great way, again, to use those toys to connect with you so you can provide them in a healthy way and so forth and so forth. Okay, let's have a look. Let's have a look. Let's say, okay, so Susan asked, let's say birdies, how do you get them to check in with you? Just wait for them to off eye, sit, connect, then use cue and let them off leash. So what I'd first do is put the opportunity to watch the birds on cue. So put the dog on the harness, catch the harness, tell them birds, let them look at the birds. Excellent, wonderful. The birds are going to then go, get the dog to come back, sit, timing, you see birds coming, birdies, pay the dog and so forth. Now, when that happens, what's going to very quickly happen, and ideally you can either ask them to sit or ideally the dog would offer behavior and then you would cue them to access the birdies. Or the other thing is you could use one of the birds adjacent activities. So if your dog likes to chase birds, it probably have a high amount of prey drive. And you might even think about using a toy over the dog's head, which invokes the same way. And you can get, those kids' toys that flap around, that looks like a birdie flapping as a toy that looks similar. So just to give you an example of how I use the same principle, one of my dogs, Hottie, she's a border collie, she loves to chase things. She's got a massive amount of chase drive for birds and squirrels, actually. And I taught her, she had a tooth issue when she was young. I've shared that on social media. And she she found tugging uncomfortable. And what I did was I built her desire to chase something. So she used to stalk it like a typical border collie. And what I would do is get her to tug a tiny bit, and then I would put a cue or a marker on it. And the word was busy, which meant I'm going to flap the toy around really quickly, and she would stare at the toy and look at it. So I'd get her to tug a little bit. As she tugged a little bit stronger, I'd say busy, she'd release it. I'd flap the toy on the ground, and then she would get her little high. Then I would ask her to tug again, and I repeated that cycle. So what then happened is she started to value the play or tugging because it meant that she got access to the thing that she wanted, which was just to watch and be mesmerized, typical border collie. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. What would you do with chasing wildlife if you don't want them to chase? So that's where safety is a big issue. If you really don't want your dog to chase wildlife, is a great example, you're going to create, for want of a better term, wildlife chasing adjacent activities. Recall games, chase games, toys that drag on the ground, even hunting games for them, which you can use scent work, etc., to provide things that are similar. They might not be a 10. Let's just say your dog's chasing wildlife is 10 out of 10. You might be able to create things that are 7 or an 8 if you present them in the right manner. A flirt pole is a great example where the dog can chase after it. Those things you can use and are more practical, and obviously are going to provide your dog with an outlet for that need and desire, without it being something that puts them at risk. Now, parallel to that, if you have a dog that has a massive amount of chase drive for wildlife, it's really important that in the interim time, I should say, you prevent them rehearsing that. So that if you imagine 2 buckets, one is behavior that you want and one is unwanted behavior. If currently the chasing wildlife is the unwanted behavior, the key thing is to prevent them doing that whilst you're putting more reinforcement and more games into the wanted behavior bucket. So that would be chase adjacent games, wildlife chasing adjacent games, hunting adjacent games. Again, you've got to think safety. Hunting adjacent games would be finding something in the undergrowth on a harness and possibly a lead or a long line. Chase games would be restrained recalls, food chase games, etc., etc., so that you can use things that will invoke the same emotion but are appropriate and safe and more accessible. Okay. Sue Ingram said, I raw feed. Can I use extra treats as rewards, or should I switch to part dry food? No, you can absolutely use. There's some really great raw treats that you can use. You can use dehydrated treats. You can use your dog's raw as long as you use a squeezy tube. That's a really great thing to do. You can get the silicone tubes that you can dispense food with, or a pouch with a spoon is just as effective. Okay, let me carry on. So I imagine. So Jean said, I imagine how you have to prevent them self-rewarding first. Yep, absolutely, the 2 buckets, and then a cue for that behavior. Absolutely. What about hand feeding for your dogs? 4-year-old dog. I think you mean 4-year-old dog. Hand feeding you can do at any stage of the dog's life. As I said, I often do it the most when they're puppies, and I do it in adolescence, and sometimes I'll do it with my competition dogs if I'm working on specific skills and I really want to build value for that skill, or I'm building on confidence, or it's if I'm working on training, I'll use my dog's meals as a jackpot. The reason being, and not obviously I use a lot of treats and toys, is sometimes that meal can actually be a bigger reinforcement to the dog. Because it's been conditioned, get your food, and there's no precursor behavior with a lot of dogs. You build a lot of value, you produce that metal dish. It's so classically conditioned to become something so important to your dog. It can be even more valuable than just saying here's a single treat or even an exciting delivery. So if I'm really stretching that dog, me saying bingo and producing, or jackpot and producing that dog's meal, can really expedite the process of creating desire for complex behaviors. Okay. Sally Butler said, all my dogs have special training toys and free access toys. With free access toys, they will play on their own, but prefer to bring them to me to ask me to play. Yeah, mine dogs would be the same. My toys aren't ones that you can easily interact with, because I want them to primarily be toys that my dogs can self reinforce and engage with. The caveat's that if I felt I had a struggle or connection with my dog, then I might alter it slightly. Okay. Jay, you will never get access to chasing wildlife. I'm not sure what would be a suitable alternative. Chase games. If your dog is chase driven to chase things, provide that chase via you. Recall games, restrain recalls, hide and seek games, treat throw, run away, have the dog. And the big thing is to create speed. You can send the dog around a cone or teach it to run around something and then take off, so that you can create that acceleration, that little high that the dog gets from chasing. So hopefully that makes sense. So Annabelle said, my boy loves to sniff when we're on a walk. I can cue to do X, Y, and Z, and his behavior is being released to go to sniff. When I start to ask for world behaviors, his focus is on going back to sniff rather than genuinely wanting to engage. He sometimes does then want to engage, but not after going through a bit of conflict, going through the motions of various games, depending on the environment. So, okay, what I can cue. So the thing I would change is I wouldn't cue it. I would see if the dog offered, because that's more powerful. If you're cueing the dog and you say, let's just say you say sit, go for a sniff, down, go for a sniff, hand touch, that's brilliant. Okay. What I'd see if the dog can start to offer, because what then happens if the dog is offering the behavior, the dog thinks that it's instigating it, it's their idea, as opposed to being cued, then it's your idea. And if you want the dog to focus for longer, what you need to be thinking is also building behaviors into it. So, for example, tug in order to sniff, or hand touch in order to sniff. Tug's a great one. Play is a great one. Bring the toy back in order to sniff. What you can then do is use those in your training sequence. So it would be do some behavior, tug the toy, go for a sniff. Do some behavior, chase the ball, bring it back, go for a sniff. So now what you're doing is you're transferring the value of sniffing into reinforcements that are more practical. Again, the big thing is to look for what you ask for in order to access. If the dog really values sniffing, and that's so reinforcing, ask for more behavior, ask for sit, down, stand, hand touch, twist, go through my legs. Okay, go for a sniff. So now what you're doing is you're getting more and more behavior in order to access the really high value reinforcer. Hopefully that makes sense, Annabelle. Okay, so Leslie said, before you ask your dog to fetch, chase, catch a ball, for example, I have 3 different cues. Would you ask for a trick first? And should you quit while ahead before it becomes boring, correct? So you absolutely can go out with your dog and have a good time and do all the chase games. That's brilliant relationship building. Do things just for the pure joy of it. So just to be really clear, my dogs don't have a militant lifestyle. They can do their own thing, but what they will definitely do is quite frequently, they'll check in, they'll come up to me, they'll try and engage me on the dog walk. I can say, off you go. They might come and walk by my side and offer that behavior. I might engage with them. Sometimes I won't. I can send them off. But what it does is they are actively engaging, connecting with me without me having to always ask them to do so. They are trying to get me to reward them. They're trying to get access to the thing that they want. And it's done in a way that's appropriate. It might be walking by my side. It might be coming and looking at me, offering a sit near me. If I pause on a dog walk to take a picture or whatever, they'll come and gravitate knowing, oh God, do you want our engagement? So what it does is it gets them to connect with me constantly on a walk, which makes my life much easier. Okay. Helen said, hand feed, do you give a food that way or eat? Do you give all food that way or half and half? I have multiple dogs and puppy won't be happy if he doesn't. So I would say it depends on your dogs. Do what best suits you. So if you hand feed if you feel you're struggling with all your dogs, hand feed them all. If you feel you've got great connection for some and you're struggling with focusing a connection with others and focus and engagement, do it the ones that lack focus and engagement. So that way it's more easy for you. Okay. I've been hand feeding and tossing food since my puppy at 10 weeks old. I still throw food when I want to go back. I want her to go back and then chase me with tug toy. Honey's big with toy box. She will bring a toy over to me. My 5-year-old. Sorry. She will bring a toy over to my 5-year-old to get him to play. So I would think about that. So my dogs, I always say this to people, I have toys in my garden. And my dogs have always, I always envy people that have their dogs and they post videos of their dogs playing next to them or running around. My dogs very, very rarely would do that. The youngsters would a little bit, but I would say all of my dogs eventually grow out of that. They would very, 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 none of my big dogs would play with each other. Every now and again, Swipe and Jungle will sort of do a little play bout, and then that's about as exciting as it gets. And I'm envious as to why that is, or I'm envious of other people because I don't deter it. I actually quite like it. But I think it's because my dogs really value the interaction that I give, and they understand that, that they can access the thing they want via me. So definitely, if they were playing outside or around, trying to think what they would play with Jimmy. Jimmy sometimes might have a little, but if I would, and they would normally be out of my sight. They wouldn't do it with me. They would try and interact with me, because of the way in which I interact with them, and because of the relationship I have. And it means that I don't then have to battle with their focus. It's not like my dogs would pick one of my other dogs over me. That definitely wouldn't happen. Because I have worked on identifying what that dog really loves and putting cues on it or permissions on it, or asking for please or thank you or my daddy may I behaviors. So that means they look to me to access the things. As I said, I have 2 siblings, and I've seen them a couple of times taking a toy and biting either end of it. But when I walked out there I don't know what I was doing, when I walked out in the garden to sort of take a video, they instantly stopped and they went, oh, and they actually brought the toy over to me and tried to initiate play with me, which was kind of productive. So I wanted to, and even if I try and sneakily watch them, if they clock me, they'll stop. And it's not because, and they'll come and engage with me. It's definitely not because I stopped them, because I was trying to get them to a video, but they just won't. And I understand it's a byproduct of how I engage with them. And as I said, I don't ever stop it. I love to watch dogs play, but my dogs won't do it. They won't even do bitey face with each other. So, and that's, I think, a byproduct of how I connect with them. It's not, as I said, it's not something I deter. I would love them to do it, but they choose not to. But I think that's also in how I engage with them. I'll do a lot of physical play with them and interaction. Again, I'll be talking about that later in the week, so I don't want to glance into that subject, but that means that I provide them with those little fixes that my other dogs don't necessarily provide to them or with them. And it's just, I don't know why none of my dogs have ever, and all the dogs I've owned, they would very rarely, they'd very rarely play with each other. Get the bowl of food and when the others do. So, right. Do you mean he get a bowl of food when the others do? So you can, if you really are concerned about the puppy being concerned or worried, I'm not sure a puppy would necessarily see that, but you can give the puppy a little token Kong or whatever to occupy them, and that would be part of your enrichment activity. But put a word in it, Kong time, give him the Kong. So he then attaches that thing with you. That might help get around that, Helen. Mine is generally pretty engaged, but if a swallow skins across the field, swallow skims, there's no way on earth she would wait for me to give permission. Less obsessive distractions, I can get her to wait, but fast moving birds seem impossible. So what I would, rather than trying to get her to wait, first put it on cue. Okay, so if your dog does that and you have no issues as to have no reason to stop it, and then what you do is ask the dog to do a simple behavior and then allow the dog to, so don't stop it first, put a cue on it first, put the label on the behavior, the thing the dog wants. So chase birdies. And one of my dogs, Hottie, and a dog I had in the past, Ty, who, I don't think there's a picture of him up here, he used to love to chase birds. He used to go and actively chase them and try and instigate them and play with them almost. So I put that on cue. When I would take him to a particular field it's in one of the flats, if you know London at all, where you can go to a place in the field where there's a considerable lot of distance from the road. You have to really travel. And I knew that what he used to do, the birds would then either play with him, and they'd sort of fly at him, whether they're playing with him or trying to ward him off, I don't know. He thought they were trying to play with him, and then at some point they would take off, and once he got to a certain point, he'd lose interest and come back to me. And I knew it was roughly always about, he had it because he was young. He had a point of where he went, okay, that's too far. In that instance, with that particular dog, I was happy to take the risk of having him off lead, but I did have him on a long line and a harness just as a safety measure in case I felt, okay, this is going to go left. But always think safety first. So put the word on it. So I used to say, chase the birdies. He'd chase the birdies. Then I would, once he would normally circle back, I'd ask him to down and I'd catch his collar. I'd wait for birdie, and I'd say, chase the birdies and let him go, and off he'd go again. So I first put a label on it and did it back to front, so to speak. Okay. What about a dog who grazes when he eats his meal? He won't take it if I hand feed, he loves the flirt pole, usually has chicken for high value treats. So if you have a dog that's a grazer, that's the first thing I'd say. Don't let the dog graze. And if the dog is a little bit fussy on its food, it's probably telling you that it's getting enough portion. So cut the portion down. I don't believe in withholding. My dogs have got to eat. I have to say, caveat to that is, I would intimately have a fast day for my dogs if they've had bones or things of that type. I will quite happily give my dogs a fast day every couple of months. I probably do it just based on what they've had. So it might be that your dog's just having too much in its meal. Some dogs are really fussy eaters, so definitely use what the dog has. And the other thing about food delivery is think about how you give it to the dog. One of my dogs in the past fire, who's up on that picture, but not in that one. Anyway, that picture there. She was a terrible eater, and I used to make food a toy to her, and then she ended up being brilliant. She loved food as a reinforcer. It's really common with a lot of breeds, border collies, sight hounds. Some sight hounds can be fussy about food. Make it prey, make it active, and you'll find that it will be more usable. Okay. Good one. How do you address chasing? So car chasing dogs, definitely you're going to provide chase adjacent. So think about ways in which you can provide enrichment. So it's really common. Lots of herding breeds have major car issues, challenging issues. Really go into chase games, chasing you, chasing toys, chasing food, running games, etc., to utilize that dog's desire onto a healthy outlet. Separately work on impulse control away from cars, obviously, because that's a huge safety issue. And you do it on your toys or your food. So can the dog sit in a dog bed whilst you throw food or toys or run around, etc., etc.? Then use a second person to create a distraction and gradually build it up. Train the dog. If you're going to work on car desensitization, then have the goodwill of a friend that has a car that you can control, and you can then work on desensitizing the dog to moving cars. Have them on a mobile or whatever, communicate with them to tell them when to move it, when to stop it, go to somewhere that's appropriate and safe. So then you can work on generalizing your dog's skill on the toys and the fast moving things to the cars. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. So just going to finish up asking a couple more questions. Let's have a look. Okay, good one. My border collie still loves obedience 11, losing attention because he's looking for other exercise, create movement, like a go out, dumbbell retrieve, as an example. So first thing I'd say is, each of those exercises, are they on a cue themselves? So i.e. going to do retrieve, going to do go outs, going to do send aways, whatever your words are. Does the dog understand when it can and can't do those things? That would be the first thing to change or to address. Second thing, at 11 years old, there could be a history of the dog doing that indiscriminately. Part of it is to decide if the ends justifies the means. Are you going to turn it around at 11 years old? You can improve it, but you've got to be realistic depending on how long the dog's been rehearsing the behavior, and if the dog's still competing would be the question. All right, hope that answers the question. So Laura said, you suggested chase toys fast to use with birds, and it's even worked when Keo has started the chase but hadn't thought to use it in obedience. Yeah, hopefully that helps. Excellent. Would you do this bird example with spaniels that are supposed to flush a bird? Yeah, even spaniels, I would teach or gun dogs. I've had a Labrador. She was taught to chase things that I wanted to chase, toys, etc., because she was a trained gun dog. And I got her 3. So I had to do a lot of work of saying to her, ignore, things in the sky, essentially. She did have impulse control, to be fair, because of the fact that she was a gun dog, but she definitely had an awareness of birds, etc. And I had to do a lot of work on that because of the lifestyle that she led with me. So yes, it's absolutely possible. I definitely would do that with a dog, irrespective of it, because it's just the safety issue sometimes as well. Okay. For Paps Chase Drive, I use a cat toy. Oh, brilliant one. Mouse and a pole that I drag. Yeah, excellent. Hey, excellent. Carolyn said, how can I generate engagement without making him bark? So try using food rather than toys. That's a good one. Think about your energy levels. Think about how you play. So I'm going to be talking about play I think it's Wednesday. I'm going to be talking about play. So I'm going to come circle back. So park that question. I will elaborate play and how to play in different ways to create focus and engagement later on this week. But yeah, so think about it. Video yourself, and then you can probably unpack a lot of what's going on. So I hope that makes sense to you. Okay. Patricia, maybe I accept that she'll never be able to be off lead as the risk is too high. She knows when she's offline. Quite possibly, Patricia. Obviously, with your dog, your Schnauzer Beryl, you've come a long way. And as we identified last November, big thing to work on is that consistency of recall. And again, that's going to be talked about further on with focus and engagement. I'm going to circle back to that one. So I'm going to park that question and come back to it. Okay. Sue said, what a risk of a bloat if the dog is running around and eating its food? So obviously, because you're hand feeding them, it's going to be dispersed throughout the day. So it's unlikely your dog is going to have a big enough portion of meals in any one given time that it's going to be challenging and problematic. I've been hand feeding my dogs for at least 25 years, off and on. Did I do it with Scrunch? 25, 30 years maybe. And haven't had an issue. And had deep-chested breeds and big breeds. So because it's been drip-fed, you are less likely to get it. It's when a dog has a big meal and it's then active that it might be problematic. Okay. Okay. How do you build engagement outside the house if the dog is less interested in walks and while there are distractions? Definitely hand feed. Definitely look at creating pockets of activity on the walk, search games, weights, impulse control, chase games, all of that I'd be walking. So my dogs, as I said, on the walk, it's our quality time together. So hence why what happens is when I do have areas on my walkway, they go off sniffing naturally, and I can do different walks and different routes that causes them to do so. There's a really steep incline, so like a 45-degree climb where it's about fitness. So they won't engage with me because they're really looking to maneuver these different hills and banks, etc. But what their whole mindset shifts. They're very much focused on the environment and looking at the floor and navigating the branches and the trees and the fallen wood branches and the logs, etc. So their whole mindset shifts. But then I get to a certain bit of the walk where we do search games for the toy, or we do running up and down the bank, and so forth and so forth. So the walk itself, it's almost like it's a adventure park, and that's how I like it to be, because it means then they're looking to me for connection. They want to engage with me on the walk, as opposed to just taking themselves off and doing their own thing, which is when, especially where I live, they could easily get into mischief. A couple more questions, then I'm going to draw things to a close, just because we've been going for an hour and I'm mindful of everybody's time. Okay. So Paddy asked, so more than rewarding with something that they want after they've done desired behavior you ask them to, you want the dog to ask you to do something that they will get their reward. So you want the dog to see a reward, food or swim, and for them to come say, may we heal so I can get the reward. That's different from me just asking, do we want dinner, and can I ask for behavior the reward? Absolutely. You've hit it on the nail, Paddy. And that's so much more powerful, because I might not always ask for a sports behavior. I might just ask for a domestic behavior. So for example, I was teaching in about 4 or 5 hours up north on Saturday, and I got up early, walked my dogs. I happened to stay near a park, walked my dogs in a lovely park up in Stoke, and met somebody, had all dogs out, had, how many dogs did I have with me? 13, because a couple of them were at home, and I had 2 dogs with me, different dogs with me. So 13 dogs with me. Dogs had a lovely walk, doing all my engagement walks, etc., engagement on the walk. And 2 gentlemen come, one with a beagle, one with a cocker spaniel, stopped, and I was going back to my vehicle. I get all my dogs. A couple of them I had on lead anyway, because we were walking back to the car. So some of them I just said, get in, told everybody to wait, which they did. 13 dogs, the gentleman walks past, nobody moves. I then walk back, put the dogs away. That's where my dogs understand that some of them actually offered when they saw the person, they just stopped and lingered, because they knew that's a consistent trigger. Somebody comes, I normally pattern them where I get them to side, and then I reinforce them. What they did was several of them gravitated and just waited without me having to prompt them, because they understood the pattern. That's far more powerful than me saying to them, which, to be fair, a couple of them I did say, oh, come back here, because they were a little bit further afield. I went, Fido here, wait there, which they did. The others had offered that behavior. So what that tells me is my dogs understood the way to get the thing that they want, which was to either greet the other dog, or some of them wanted to go off sniffing, or some of them wanted to go back to the van for a drink. They understood the way to get those things. Some of them love my van. They love because they'd get they were thirsty, they'd get a drink, and they'd often get treats when they go jump in the back of the van. So because of that connection that they made, they would understand to offer behavior to get the thing that they want. Now, I wouldn't ever withhold water from a dog, obviously, morally, ethically. But what my dogs understood is, oh, there's water in the van. We want to get that. Here's a chance for us to get that. We want the treats, because I know what I sometimes do. Well, when they go in the back of the van, I'll sometimes give them a treat or a biscuit. And they picked up on that picture. They could see the van. They knew the van was there. They saw the person. They went, oh, we know how to get treats off this guy, or how to get the thing that we want, which is to go in the van. We'll come and linger by him and wait because we see a pattern. That was totally not me cueing them. So that's a shift. And then what that creates is a dog that looks to me for opportunity to get the things that they want. And what happens is, and this is the power of when you have a relationship with the dog in this manner, is I don't have they generalize it. They almost assume, oh yeah, I want that thing, I'll come and do something that dad wants, or I know in the past he's liked and reinforced in order to get the thing that I want. And that normally defaults to behavior that's deemed appropriate, that's deemed, oh, aren't those dogs being good? Well, I knew what they were doing. What they were saying is, hey, we want the treat that you've left in the back of the crate. We know how to get it now. We'll just linger by you, looking at you, waiting for you to say, go in the crate or hop it up. So that's how powerfully this way of engaging with a dog can be if done correctly. All right, all. I know there's a couple more questions. I will pick them up. I'll drift through them. Quick one. How do you deliver raw food? I think somebody's mentioned about using a food dispenser. Using a food dispenser, or just taking a pouch out, or using dehydrated treats is another option. Let me just make sure. Okay. I would love to learn something to take off some steam between being exercise in the ring. Something like let my dog jump up on me just shortly and then move on to transport and then next size. How would you teach that? I can't bring food or rings to the ring, of course. So first thing is you'd need to teach it using food or toys. Then you'd put the behavior in a variable schedule, and then you'd put it as a linking behavior. So although this series isn't specifically about that, very briefly, obviously you can choose how to teach the dog to jump up. You can shape it, you can lure it, you can capture it, all the above. Once I've got the dog doing that, then put it on a cue. My dogs will jump up on the cue, up, and I'll double tap my chest, which causes them to jump up. If I wanted them to jump up in my arms, I'll do a double with only my little ones. Double clap, and my poodle will jump up into my arms, and I'll say jump, or up, sorry, double clap, up, and she'll jump into my hands. Once I've obviously put that on cue, a lot of those sort of behaviors can become self-reinforcing, certainly with her it is, my poodle it is. Then I can use it as a reinforcer. But separately, if it doesn't, what you can do is up, and then feed them high so they learn to value that. And then once you've got that, then you can put it on a variable schedule, which is one of the best ways to create value for something. And then you can use it in the context of which you said. All right. So, question. Digging. My dog loves it as digging, but there's a difficulty to use it as reinforced. No, get a sandpit. Or a kiddie sandpit. Put digging on cue on that, and then you can even minimize it to just get a tray with sand in it. Put something in it the dog likes. Teach to put it on digging on cue. Great reinforcement. And then obviously, if it's environmental and there's places that are appropriate to dig, like by all means put it on cue, and then you can use it that way. Okay. A couple more. Super social dog who loves to visit crew in a rally and agility. Any suggestions? Put greeting on cue. Go see, and then use it. Do an agility piece of agility. Hand touch. Then you could do a simple agility behavior. Go see. Person fusses them. Ask for 2 behaviors. Then reinforce the dog with being greeted. Then you would do 2 behaviors. Tug the toy. Go see. 2 behaviors. Tug the toy. Back to another 2 behaviors. Go see. Yeah, and build it that way. Hopefully that makes sense. Final question. My girl switches off the ring if she knows we have no rewards going in. So I'm going to park that question again because I'm going to be talking about the specifics of intrinsic reinforcement. How do you create intrinsic reinforcement and intrinsic value to your dog? And that's going to come later in the week. So I'm going to come back to that question, park that one, Helen, bring it up later in the week. And I'm going to talk about intrinsic value. How do you create intrinsic value? Hopefully this has been helpful. Talking about looking at your lifestyle with your dog away from the challenge that you're currently having to see if you can build more focused engagement. Hand feeding, specifically, investing in those 5 E's: education, entertainment, emotional stability, exercise, enrichment is a great way to create focus and engagement. Putting permission on and permission and please and thank you cues on your dog's behaviors that the dog currently values. Also, managing the 2 buckets, the wanted behavior, unwanted behavior, and teaching a behavior adjacent outlet for that behavior so that you can transfer the value of that behavior and the desire onto things that are productive and you can harness it. Put a reinforcement marker so that you can use it as a reward for things that you want. Hopefully that all makes sense, everybody. Just tip of the iceberg, talking about focus and engagement. Going to be live all this week. Thank you for your, gosh, that's gone longer than anticipated. Thank you for your interest. Great. There's probably, I think, about 200 people watching. I will sift through the questions. If there's any that I can pick up, I will come back to and either answer online or pick them up in the lives. Tomorrow's live, 7:30 p.m. on this Facebook page, on this YouTube page. Thanks a lot, everybody. Glad you, hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts. Check out the Locked In ebook. Simply comment Locked In on any of the previous posts, and you'll get an automated email providing that for you. So, yeah. And how can I catch up with these from the start? The lives will be available all this week. So just go back and retrospectively watch them on either YouTube or Facebook. All right, all. Have a great evening. Enjoy. Thank you for joining. See you all tomorrow.